that was that was Chris Christie
Mocking him?
doing Donald Trump. Here's Chris Christie back in January.
And something that
Seriously?
I've
met the president of Mexico twice.
So I had to take a year.
He asked for a meeting with me in the United States when he was there on a visit. I went and met with him in Mexico City on a trade mission. He's a very nice guy, very smart guy. Let me guarantee you something. He's not paying for the wall.
Now, Chris Christie might be named vice president. Talk all about it is Rick Klein. Rick Klein, good morning. Thanks for checking in.
Hey, great to be with you.
All right, so what are the odds Chris Christie is going to be tapped?
I think it's decent. I mean, 1 in 3, 1 in 4. I mean, I think you have to put his name high on the list, partly because there's many Republicans that want not be anywhere near that list, partly because I think there's a natural affinity there, and I think Donald Trump respects the fact that Chris Christie was on with him relatively early, gave him some credibility, and understands what his movement has represented in the Republican Party. Hasn't been running from it, has been embracing it.
Yeah. So how does Chris Christie how does he answer those questions when he was mocking Donald Trump, making fun of Donald Trump, saying he was unqualified to be president? How does he then turn around and accept the vice presidential nominee?
Well, I think you see worse things from that in politics all the time. And, Chris Christie has already flip-flopped on that question of Trump. He's already justified it, and I think he'll continue to justify it. Obviously, you always have history. I mean, you go back to George H.W. Bush and Ronald Reagan, or Lyndon Johnson and John Kennedy,
right.
Former rivals who ended up as teammates. You can get over that pretty easily.
Yeah. Any other names that are sort of rising to the top?
Newt Gingrich's name is back in contention. A lot of people were scratching it off their short lists because they saw that he was critical of the comments that Trump made about the judge a couple weeks ago. But he seems to have been more favor inside Trump camp, and maybe putting himself back in the good graces that he could be considered.
Could the party of family values have a ticket of 6 marriages?
Well, I guess they could test that proposition. The flip side is that if you were going to vote based on the number of marriages of a candidate, you wouldn't be voting for Trump anyway. So
right.
Why not go all in on that? And at least there's some consistency, I guess, between the two of them. And I think there's some personality traits that they share.
Any current senators who are making the list?
A few, yeah. I mean, you look at Bob Corker from Tennessee, who's kind of more in the establishment vein. Jeff Sessions, who's been almost at Trump's side from the beginning of this, from Alabama, even John Thune from South Dakota. There are some names out there. I think one of the problem is, though, for some of the folks, not necessarily those three, but some of the folks in the Senate and governors, they may not want the job. They may not want to be tarred with the Trump era and what might not be a winning campaign.
What about Cruz or Kasich or Rubio, or outside of Cruz, any of the other ones who are running for president?
I feel like you add up their chances to about 0. I don't think there's any realistic shot. I mean, those folks have been so highly critical, and they've made clear, from the Rubios and the Kasichs and the Cruzes, they just don't see any way to square what they believe in with what Donald Trump believes in. Maybe Ben Carson, but I think that's really a long shot. Certainly not Carly Fiorina. I don't think any of the former rivals, save Chris Christie, is going to get serious consideration.
All right, let's talk Hillary. How much chance does Elizabeth Warren have of being tapped?
I don't think it's big. I mean, I think that was a good moment for them this week. You saw how effective she is as a surrogate and as a teammate. But I think that's where her power is in energizing the base, not in as working formally on a ticket. And I think there's a lot of calculations around chemistry, around ability to govern that come into that, and I don't think Elizabeth Warren answers those in the right direction.
Who's the odds-on favorite now for Hillary?
Tim Kaine, the senator from Virginia, is the name that I hear most often. I feel it over and over again, and every time it seems to come back to him as someone who's a very, very safe choice, and what might be an election year where she can afford to be safe if she feels like she can win this thing without any kind of outside necessary help. Then she'll go with someone that's a trusted and maybe even a little bit boring.
He also helps her with Virginia, which is a battleground state.
Battleground state. He's also fluent in Spanish and former governor in addition to being a senator. So kind of a depth of experience that I think may be a good compliment for her.
And is Trump going to when is he going to announce it? At the convention? Before the convention? Any idea?
He has said at the convention or shortly before, although there's some reporting out there in the Washington Post that says he might do it earlier to try to unite the party. I'm skeptical of that. I think we're looking at convention week for that announcement. Keep in mind, he's got a lot to navigate even over the next 2 weeks before you get to Cleveland. He's got to kind of tamp down the anti-Trump forces and make sure that the party is held at bay, get some fundraising in order. So he has a lot of things to take care of back home, or kind of tending his own home the home front before he can even worry about the vice presidential pick.
ABC News political director Rick Klein. Rick, have a good 4th of July. Thanks for checking in.
Hey, thank you.
625, a big